On Monday and Tuesday, I introduced you to three different poems and I read them aloud for you, and we did some thinking about them. For the next 3 days, we're going to be working on our reading fluency. That means making our reading sound smooth and flowing the way that it should. But when we read poetry, our fluency is a little different than if we're reading prose or a story or an article. When we read a story, an article, things that aren't poetry, we pay attention to the punctuation to tell us when to stop, when to pause, how to have our emotions. And if maybe there's a question, we think about how we read that differently than if we're just saying something as a statement. A lot of those things we still do when we read poetry, but the punctuation isn't always what tells us how to read a poem. We're going to look back at the poem Dog today. And you know that there are lines in this, and the lines sometimes end with no punctuation, sometimes they end with a comma, sometimes they end with other punctuation like periods or semicolons. Those things inform us how to read a poem. So today I'm going to read Dog again, and I want you to try to look along with the poem that you have, and listen to the way that I read it and think about where those lines are, where the line breaks are, and what it sounds like when I read it. Okay, so now I'm going to read the poem Dog for you, and you're going to follow along on the other side of the screen, and you're going to read along for fluency, seeing where does Mrs. Simmons use punctuation or line breaks to help inform my my fluency, and where I pause and where I emphasize things. Okay? Dog by Valerie Worth. Under a maple tree, the dog lies down, lolls his limp tongue, yawns, rests his long chin carefully between front paws, looks up, alert, chops with heavy jaws at a slow fly, blinks, rolls on his side, sighs, closes his eyes, sleeps all afternoon in his loose skin.